Hey, you're watching PNW Enduro. Today we're going to be going over some of the differences between the KTM XC and XCW models. Now, some of this information is going to be specific to the 2020 bikes as well. I'm going to ride both of them on the trail today and give you my impressions. So here's my 2020 KTM 250 XC TPI. The biggest difference between the XC and the XCW, first off, is this is a closed ratio transmission where the XCW is a wide ratio. And then second off, the suspension. My bike has the Exact, which is the air forks. And then of course, the linkage shock like most bikes have. We come over to the 2020 250 XCW TPI, and it's got the Explore forks. This is the newest version of them, so it's a standard spring fork. And then the PDS shock. So no linkage on this one, which is good because there's a lot of clearance down there. You're not hanging up anything and less stuff to damage. Another thing that's really nice with the XCW models is the headlight it comes with and the trip computer, which is really nice. Looking at the specs, I noticed a couple of differences on the XC versus the XCW. First off, the steering head angle is slightly different on each bike. Also, according to KTM, the XCW is a few pounds heavier. That would be because of the standard spring forks and also the added electrical with the headlight and trip computer. So we're just riding some faster, flowy stuff. Second, third gear trails right now. Good. You want to switch for a minute? Okay, now I'm on Arthur's 250 XCW TPI. Got the Explorer forks compared to my air forks. These forks are really nice and flush. Just floating over that chop. So the biggest difference for me on an XC and an XCW is the transmission. Of course, the XCW is a wide ratio transmission. And in the faster flowy stuff like this, it's not much different. When you get into more technical stuff is where I notice it. So first gear is really, really low. Second gear is pretty low too on the XCW. So I find sometimes I'm kind of hunting for the right gear, whereas on my XC, second gear is pretty comfortable. On an XCW, I'm kind of in between second and third. Once you get into this faster stuff and you're third gear and up, it's not a factor at all. They're pretty much the same gearing after that. New frame this year on the XCWs. Feels great, really nimble. Feels more like riding an XC frame, what I'm used to. So I think that evens the gap between the two bikes, where one is not necessarily better than the other. It's just preference on the gearing. The PDS shock feels good. It's an advantage not having the linkage hang down.
I've owned some older XCW models in the past, and at that time I thought the PDS shock was a bit of a weak point. On all the new models I've been on, the 2020s, I find the PDS shock is on par with performance on the linkage.
The forks are softer than the air forks for sure. I really like it. Some heavier riders probably feel like they're too soft and might need new springs on it. It's Goat Trail, I think. It's kind of the really slow first gear stuff that XCW should be made for. I always like to try and do this part of the trail with no dabs. So even in there, first gear, pretty low. Could use it just a bit taller. First gear through that same section on the XC feels perfect.
So I feel like I need to put in a little bit of a disclaimer here. I realize you can change the gearing on all these bikes by just changing the sprocket sizes, but what you can't change is the spacing between the gearings on the wide ratio transmission.
Alright, try out this hill now, we're clear. That kind of stuff is where I prefer the transmission on the close ratio XC. I'm liking this XCW 2020 version a lot more than I thought, actually. Might have to switch to XCW when I move up to a 300.
You may have seen a video that Kyle at Dirt Bike Channel did explaining how you can bump start an XC but not an XCW if the battery's dead. That's because the XC comes with a capacitor and the XCW doesn't. Number 8 in the specs here. Here's the XCW with no capacitor. You can buy one of these, but you can also make your own very cheap if you check out some other videos on YouTube showing how to do this.
I got Arthur in front of me on my XC bike. I'm riding his XCW. My bike's got about 70 hours on it now. This one, I think he's about 30 or so. So he's been riding a fair bit. He just got this bike. Both bikes have the latest map update installed. Oh yeah, the suspension is so plush on this. PDS shock feels really good. I would not hesitate to buy an XCW model because of the PDS. Getting into some more flow stuff here. A little faster pace. Another hill coming up here, technical. I got a cheering crew up there. What do you think of first gear on that?
There's more.
Yes, more usable, hey?
Yeah, more usable.
Yeah. Gentlemen? It's a really fun trail. The dirt is perfect today. It's been dry this month. Rained a couple days ago. Conditions are great. So both these bikes, we've taken the steering stops out. And that gives you just a little bit more turning radius in the tight trees and the tight switchbacks. And the forks still don't hit the radiators.
I hope you enjoyed this on-trail review of the KTM XC versus XCW models. If you have any questions about the differences in these two bikes, leave it down in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you next time.